Well, the council had proven itself to be both incompetent and corrupt, most importantly corrupt, and that uh, it needed some intervention. A preferable position might have been a kind of opening up the democracy within Wollongong so that fairly quickly there could have been elections and a group of responsible and accountable councillors appointed. Now, the question then might be, well, doesn't democracy show, in fact, a weakness here because we had elected councillors? Ideally, however, the exposure of corruption would have alerted people in Wollongong to the necessity for a council that is accountable and that is responsible to the people. The problem with the situation now, of course, is appointed administrators have a system of accountability to a different set of people, which is not the electorate at large. People who have been in governmental positions long term, when the government itself at a state level has been compromised with regard to development, and it has, then the appointees of that government are likely to themselves have a background which is compromised to some degree. We have a government intervening, sacking the council on grounds of corruption, and yet that government itself has very big questions over its performance in relation and its over its performance in relation to development, whether it's compromised its position. And recently, in fact, a decision of the Land and Environment Court highlights the fact that it has, in the past, compromised its position in a way which is reasonably serious, if not corrupt. At the local level, you find developers, real estate agents, and others always lobbying to get access to or themselves being represented directly. Local councils don't have the power that state governments have over all development issues, and they might make decisions that go against what the state government wants and so on. And the state government has a certain degree of power there. So, and then depending upon what you're dealing with, it's the federal government that has power. There have been proposals in the past to restructure Australian democracy such that you have a regional level of government. This was Whitlam's idea in particular, and then people who worked under Whitlam and with Whitlam in the period of the first Whitlam government. While they didn't move towards implementing this, it was an idea that they were toying with, and it still has some legitimacy. The idea that you do away with the states, as it were, and you have a federal system and a regional system that will more directly represent the interests of regions and so on. The problem with any system of government is that it's more likely that the powerful interests, the propertied interests, and so on, will organise, mobilise, and get their way. No system of government, in a sense, is a guarantee of genuinely popular representation, simply because certain interests have access to the means of communication much more directly than other people, and so that at a local level, it's more likely that those who are interested in putting in high-rise development, for example, have access to means of communication which will convince people it'll create jobs, and in an environment where jobs are needed, then that sounds pretty good. But we do know, and there are many examples to support it, from local environmental campaigns in the 1970s on, whereby communities have decided no, this development will not go ahead, and local governments have supported them, and so there is always that possibility. That possibility doesn't exist with administrators, of course, because it's more likely that administrators have their own interests that aren't necessarily those of aren't necessarily at a distance from those of property developers. It's highly likely in Wollongong that you will get some of the same sorts of people elected, and there'll be the same sorts of risks. I hope, however, that the highlighting of corruption will mean that those some that are elected are well outnumbered by people who are in fact elected by the community at large on a ticket of responsibility and accountability. It might be a forlorn hope. That's the problem. Democracy almost always is. Almost, no, not always is. At times, democracy is a forlorn hope rather than a reality. But it's in that hope that there lies a future for the possibility of popular representation rather than simply corruption and corruption that's endemic and unstoppable. What a council which is truly accountable and representative has to do is not simply believe that the elected council is the body of representation, but to recognise that there are groups out there in the community that need to be consulted and communities that need to be consulted on a regular basis. Because the simple fact in any is that in any representative system of democracy, the representatives become distanced to some degree from those that they are meant to represent. Now, there are many good representatives who guard against that, who consult regularly, but the system as a whole needs to consult regularly and recognise that democracy is not about simply representing people, people voting for representatives rather every 3 years or every 4 years as we have in New South Wales, and only every 4 years. It's not about that. It's about regular consultation and regular participation in the processes of decision making so that decisions aren't just locked up in the council, but the people have some feeling that they have a certain amount of say in what is going on, because it's not just the powerful who are being consulted, but your neighbourhood committee is being consulted as well.